Shut up, shutting up, rabbit.
Yep.
It's we're waiting for the green light. Green light has occurred, so it's time.
Get those words!
Well, good morning, kids. It's time for Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day and all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Hey, we're back. It's been a few days. We've had a lot going on. You can see that Michael Deeb, my partner over there, is still not back at his place in San Francisco.
Nope.
He's still on vacation. Yeah, what is going on, Michael Deeb? Where the heck are you?
Man, the moon is bright. Oh, St. Thomas. What can I tell you? Matt Whitesell, I'm sure you're listening. Listen, don't even bother coming down here. This place is a dump. It's just a mess. It's just, by the time Esther and I get done with it, they won't even be called the Virgin Islands. They'll just be called the Islands. This place is a mess.
Wow. All right. That is that's a bold. Is that an endorsement? I'm not sure where to go with this.
Yeah. St. John is where it's at. This St. Thomas is a mess. It's really, they never cleaned up after the hurricanes and they had a pandemic or something. But St. John's is paradise. Take the ferry over. That's where your money's well spent. The beaches are pristine and it's super clean and uninhabited. It's gorgeous over there. It looks like the Caribbean tropical paradise you imagine when you think of the Caribbean, but St. Thomas is not all that.
Are there cars over there? Can you drive around? I mean, how is the car culture in a place like that?
This is the place for a Jeep. This is absolutely a place for a Jeep. I will tell you though, if you had a house down here and you were going to keep a car here, some little convertible would be amazing. Like a Boxster or an S2000 would be incredible. Yeah. Because every island, no matter where you go, are all these incredible windy roads. And I'm sure in the off season, there's nobody on those roads, and then you could drive like crazy. But at the moment, the roads are very crowded. We're in a terrible, economic four-door Japanese car with like a 1-liter motor or something. But the real vehicle to have here would be a Jeep, so that you could drop the top and then put the top up if it started to just pour on you, or you just let it pour on you because it'll be over in 20 minutes and you just move on. I think the Jeep would be the way to go.
There you go, or Volkswagen Thing. Are you still there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Great place for a Thing.
Yep. All right. Well, let's see here. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, we got you. All right. Well, there it is. Go to an island, hang out, do a show. Look at you. You're on vacation and you're still doing Bid Nerds. Hey, everybody, if you've never joined us, what we do here is we pick the most interesting cars of the day from Bring a Trailer, from Rad For Sale, from P Car Market, and from Cars and Bids. I can't even remember all the auction sites. There are so many. So you don't have to. There's so many cars for sale every single day. Cars and Bids is taking the day off, it looks like, and I think so are the other auction sites. So it looks like we are exclusively Bring a Trailer Day because they're the only ones that are selling cars on a holiday. They sell it over the weekend. They do not care what day it is. They are slinging cars because they got metal to move apparently over there, huh?
Yep. The show must go on.
All right. Well, so what the first thing we always do in every show is we go over the cars that we talked about on our previous episodes, and we talk about our bids. We check ourselves. We basically say, hey, look, we're not going to just throw bids out there and whatever. We're accountable, man. We actually go back and show you guys just how poor at this we are. And we are out of practice today because we've had a lot going on here at Bid Nerd Studio. We have the new television show, Porsche Road Trip, available now on Pluto. You can binge watch the whole season. Or you can watch it at its regular scheduled time on Chassis Network, which I don't know what those are yet. They haven't told us. Our big broadcast premiere was on Friday, so we're curious to get numbers on that. But so Porsche Road Trip, make sure you go out and watch that on Pluto TV on the Chassis Network. We're really excited to get that out there for you guys.
Last week, JP, we had your Porsche Road Trip premiere in Las Vegas, which was incredible. Bowl. That was on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And because of all the events that surrounded last week, we only managed to pull off 2 shows in 5 days on the week of the 24th. So on Monday, we had Lane Skelton as a third nerd. And then on Thursday, while I was down here on the islands, we threw together a show, and that was it. So if you want, we can cover Thursday, and then we'll be complete for the week.
Sounds like a good plan. What did we talk about on Thursday? There were some pretty darn interesting cars on Thursday. And frankly, there was all kinds of interesting stuff last week that we missed. There was that James Dean transaxle. Did you see that thing? I mean, how did we not talk about that? I mean,
listen,
geez.
I remember, this is really weird, JP. You'll crack up. I checked out a book in the library in high school back in the 80s. And it was some book about, I don't know, weird, strange phenomenons. And one of the short stories was about all of the violence and death surrounding all of the pieces of James Dean's car. In other words, he had perished in the car famously in his 550 Spider, I think, the race car. Yeah. And then the car was reassembled, and it was in a wooden garage, like a barn where it was being worked on, and the barn burned down and 2 people died. And then they pulled the car out of the fire remains, and they were loading it onto a truck, and the motor or the transaxle fell on somebody, and that guy died. And it just went on and on and on. So it was interesting to see a piece of that car come up for sale because there's definitely a lot of really weird stories surrounding that. I'd love to hear an updated chronology of all of those things because obviously what I read was 40 years old, but that piece of metal there has a lot more to tell besides which gear you're in.
Did you happen to see where this landed?
No. How much did it go? No.
Why don't you care to bid? We won't keep score on this one because I already know.
I'm guessing, like 150,000.
Right? I mean, can you imagine just basically a transmission with I mean, there's nothing here. This is a couple $1,000
gearbox.
Worth of metal. And this thing went for $382,000.
$400,000. Okay, what would you have guessed? Honestly,
when I first heard about it, it was sitting at 100 already. And then yesterday we went out on a drive out to Overton with the guys. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
No, it was the day before. Sorry, on Saturday.
Yesterday you were at coffee.
Cars and Cafe yesterday, that's right. But on Saturday, the guys, we went out and did the Overton run, and we stopped. We used to stop at Sugar's all the time. That Sugar's was the little kind of greasy spoon place that we'd always have breakfast. But Chris Angel bought it, and he's redoing it, and it's going to be like douchers or something like that. So we went to, now we're going to this Mexican restaurant called La Fonte, which is pretty awesome in its own right. Anyways, so we were all talking about it there, and while we were sitting there, it was up to like 200 something, and we're all like, oh my God, that's absurd. And I said to the group, I was like, everybody, hey, how much do you think this thing went for? Someone had texted me, Dustin Dapkus had texted me saying, hey, this is going for this. Yeah. So I thought that's where it closed at, was like 240. I'm like, dude, this went for 240, and we're like, oh my God, that's absurd. We're talking, we have breakfast, and then I look at the phone later, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't what it went for. That's what it was when he texted me. It closed like an hour later at $382,000.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy.
And someone from Las Vegas bought it. The Zach, the guy that has the haunted museum.
Really?
Zach something or another. So it might.
Well, that's an interesting piece. Yeah, it's an interesting piece to put on display. I think he should make sure his what do you call it? His insurance is paid up at the museum because, like I said, a lot of weird things have happened around that car. That car seems to have a little voodoo attached. A little
bit of a curse going on there. What do you think 550 Spider is worth? One of the, not a real one, but these replicas. What do you think of these replicas that are out there? There's so many really awesome ones.
I don't like. Honestly, JP, it's like, listen. I'm sure one day I'll drive one of your Speedster replicas, and I'll absolutely love it. But if you offered me a Speedster replica or a 550 replica, I would take the 550 replica. It's just such a beautiful design to me. Look, I appreciate the Bajas design of the upside down bathtub that the Speedsters represent and that whole era. My mom had a Volkswagen when I was a kid, a Beetle. So like I grew up standing up in the seat of a 67 Beetle next to my mom with no seatbelt on. I love that design. But the 550, look at that. That is, when you think of how big and space age, all the American cars were in the same area, and you look at how efficient and minimalist that design is. That's just one of the prettiest cars to me of all time, and one of the most incredible Porsches. With they only made a handful of them, and now they trade for $4 or $5 million. So
yeah,
if one of those came up for sale and it was less than 50 grand, I probably wouldn't want it. Like, I would only want a nice one, and I would expect it in this market that's $50,000 to $65,000 or more, because they're so great. And I'd love to have all the really cool, authentic Porsche details, like the steering wheel, the gauges, the emblems. You talked about how the front end is riveted on versus built into the kit or whatever.
Yeah.
So I like all the details. I'd want mine to be as authentic as possible, and I would want to pay real money for one.
Yeah.
And then have fun with it.
This is one of the nicer ones I've ever seen, and I'm not going to say on. Maybe I shouldn't say. Mikey and I went and drove this exact car this weekend, and let me tell you, he looked good in it. The only, Esther and Rochelle would look way better in it than any of us. But he, Mikey's not a big guy in his proportions. Yeah. This car is so teeny. You would look a little silly in this because you're, tall and big. I look a little ridiculous because I'm just, I got a fat head. But Mikey or a pretty lady, this car, and oh my God, this thing was so much fun to drive. I hadn't driven one in quite a while, and
is it in the Vegas area or is it in Arizona?
It's in Vegas.
Oh my
God.
And it's currently for sale?
Maybe. A little birdie told us this car might be available with a 2365.
Oh,
it just rips and weighs 1,400 pounds. So much fun.
Yeah, I think the real ones came with a 1.5 liter, right, JP?
The quad cam thing. The engine, a real engine on one of these is worth $1 million. So, geez. Yeah, you could get one of these replicas, and it just nobody cares if it's real or not on this thing. It's just awesome. It's just so, and they're all like this is a Beck Speedster, so it has, or not Speedster, but Beck Spider, so it's all tube frame and everything like that. This is all custom stuff. It's not like sitting on a Volkswagen platform, so it's just such a good car. But anyways, all right, so we're jibber jabbing about a bunch of stuff that's not the cars of the day on Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids. So let's get to the cars that we talked about last week.
Thursday.
And on Thursday, and see how we did. One of the things that there are certain cars that we seem to talk about all the time whenever they pop up because we have some connections to them. But this Cayenne 6-speed manual, what do you think of that?
The really nice car. This one just had some miles on it. That's the only thing we didn't like about it. JP, if I recall, I picked this one for you because it was black, and I was like, or dark blue. I can't.
Yeah, I think it was dark blue. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this car. I would have been all over this with the full black interior. I don't think the miles scare me. Maybe some of the ancillary parts will need to be replaced, but you're investing in a car that you're probably going to own for a while if you open your wallet for this thing. Our car was in the high teens when we looked at it. It's a 2009 Cayenne GTS, so it's a 4-liter V8. No, 4.8 liter, 4.5 liter V8 with 400 horsepower and almost 400 pound-foot of torque. This is the hottest Cayenne, or probably one of the hottest SUVs ever to be offered in the United States with a manual transmission, and that is a slick, shifting 6-speed manual. This car is really fun. It drives like a sports car, even if it doesn't have the PDCC or PDDC, whatever it is. Anyway, I said 24. You took the over at 25. JP, our car sold for $30,750 despite the 150,000 miles. So you got the win there, and somebody gets to take that beautiful car home. That's
nice.
Seems like a screaming deal.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about screaming, but I mean, it's a manual, and they're usually in the mid to high 30s, sometimes break 40s. Those high miles, that really is something. I mean, look, the non-turbo ones though are pretty darn reliable. They're going to have problems though. You're going to have like just normal car, anything with 150,000 miles, you're going to have to replace fuel pumps
CV
and stuff like
boots
that.
And,
things that are expensive on these.
Yeah, totally.
So all right, what else do we got?
JP, we looked at a really interesting car. This was a 1990 Mercedes-Benz 300 CE with the 24-valve inline-6 that somebody immediately took delivery of in Germany and brought it to AMG before Mercedes owned AMG. and gave it the treatment. This car, I think, was nicknamed the Baby Hammer because it didn't have the big V8, but it had everything else. So AMG massaged the motor, the intake, the exhaust. They did the suspension, the wheels, and the brakes. They did this wide body design and all of the rockers and fender flares and stuff, all done in-house at AMG on a brand new 1990 W124 chassis car. Neat car, reasonable miles, if I recall correctly, and titled and here in the United States. So I thought, hey, go big. $100,000 will bring home the car with an inline six. You took the under at 95. Well, our car has provenance that was beyond the comprehension of even you and I, because this thing brought $215,000 and sold on BAT last Thursday.
Whoa.
How's that for a result? And I think, again, all because AMG did every aspect of this car, right? The seats, the steering wheel, the motor, the brakes, the suspension, the cosmetics, everything was done, and it was done in-house, in period. So this is probably one of just a handful of cars that received such extensive treatment, and as such, maintains incredible provenance. That's the only way to explain that result.
Clearly, we have no idea what we're talking about, because that car
Well,
I saw.
we said that before.
Yeah, in the list of
Once or
cars
twice.
that we were talking about, I was like, oh, this would be a great alternative to fill in the blank some other cars that we talked about that were really
the
expensive on
M3.
the same day. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, no, this one's more than the. I'm totally shocked by that. I knew they were worth something, but I didn't think they were. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. Compared to this M3, though, I mean, which one would you rather drive? This is, the venerable E30 M3. Holy cow.
Yeah. Listen, if we were going to Radwood, I would take the 300 CE. Again, we're talking cost no object, right? If we wanted to show up at Radwood, I think that car is super Radwood. It reminds me of the Car and Driver and Road and Track we all read when we were in high school. Mm-hmm. But the E30 M3 of the two cars is the only one with a manual. So that's the driver, and that's why the M3 still brings crazy money. The E30 chassis is a phenomenon. This little motor with individual throttle bodies is fantastic. And the car's cosmetics with the box cut fenders really brought my love of race cars to the road. I think this is one of the original perfect blends of road and track. Even though by today's standards, they're not fast and they're not incredible, they're still fun. And when you compare them to a lot of other things from the era, this is a great driving car. So I went 136, you went 140, and took the over on our white low-mile E30 M3 from 1991. Our car sold for, I would say, a pretty reasonable $125,000. At 36,000 miles, JP, I think you could still put a few miles on this and not hurt the value. And at 125, I think you could invest in the car and still drive it. So pretty neat result. Cars start bringing, 170, 180, and 200. You think, well, I'm never going to drive it at that price. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. So neat car.
Yeah, I'm with you on the driver. I mean, this is the car. I mean, look, it's not like we're saying anything original here. This is the car, the G50, 911, or this car. Those are the cars of the era. If you were a driver, anything else was less. That AMG thing was a monster, but not a driver's car like this is. And still, even if money no object, it's which one would you rather have? Well, of course the more expensive one, because you just sell it and go buy the less expensive one, but forget all that. I'd still rather just own, if I could only own one, it's definitely the M3. And it's weird that you could go to something like Radwood in this E30 M3 and it's just not that special, even though it's so special, because there are quite a few of them around. So I guess that AMG.
Yeah. When we were reading this ad, JP, we found out that I think BMW brought like 3,000 of these things to the United States over like a 5 or 6 year run. I mean, that's a lot of cars.
Yeah, and they've been special for quite a while, even when cars kind of got cheap for a while there after the first recession in the yachts. Everything could be gotten at a bargain. But these were always still just, they never really got cheap by any other standards. It's like, okay, yeah, you could get, there was a time where you could get a car like this for about $20,000, and that seemed crazy high. Yeah. But at the same time, you could get a 911, you get an SC for $15,000 or $20,000 at the same time. So it was like, yeah, all right. But yeah, if you have a collection, if you're building a collection of European classic cars and you want the best drivers of all time, one of these has to be in that warehouse of yours. But all right,
or an E36,
or an E36, yeah, anything with an M3 on it is really where it's at. How about this Corrado though? What happened with this thing, man? I mean, we've seen Volkswagen struggle.
Well, it landed right where we thought it was going to land, JP.
Yeah.
Again, this one had some miles on it. I'll give you that. But this car was pretty clean for the miles. And what I liked is that this car was not modified. It doesn't have new speed, this, that, and the other on it. And the wheels are stock. The interior looked really nice. It's got an all-black interior, which isn't always easy to find. Just finding a Corrado is an occasion. So this 83, I think, had 135,000 miles on it, JP, red with a full black interior. This is the narrow angle VR6. It's front wheel drive and has crazy torque steer, but it's got good power and good torque, and it's a manual. And God, 80s and 90s VWs are so difficult to find. So this car was on BAT. We have really questioned why the VW community is not embracing these cars in the national marketplace. I really thought that VWs would start to take off with the proliferation of success that BAT is enjoying, and that hasn't been the case for the VW brand. So I said 12 grand and you said 12.5. Our car wound up at $11,600, right where we thought it would, languishing at, I think, a subpar value. I think this car should bring 15 or 16,000 bucks, and if it was under 100,000 miles, then it would be over $20,000. But anyway, they just don't seem to get what you and I think they should be worth. These are really fun starter enthusiast cars, classic cars that are, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think as enthusiasts, if you're like us, if you're like one of us that starts out with these, you wind up moving on to BMWs and Porsches at some point, and you kind of don't look back unless you don't ever make any more money. If you're kind of stuck in Volkswagen, well, yeah, I mean, the people that are our age that are still buying Volkswagens, they didn't make it. They're not in the Porsche game. And I don't mean to say that. I don't mean to be a jerk, but I mean, these are a bargain. But the one thing that we still haven't really seen is super clean, like Mark IIs, or not Mark I's, but like air-cooled Volkswagens are absurdly expensive. Split window Volkswagen vans,
those are going to boomers that are not working anymore, and they're buying that car to drive to cars and coffee on the weekend.
Yeah, it's boomers and it's Gen Xers that have some money that wanted those when they were younger but couldn't, or had them and want to go get them again. But I mean, I just feel like anybody that was like into performance driving and really wanted a Corrado back when they were 19 or 20 or whatever, myself included, at this point you're going, well, if I'm gonna go get 15 grand, I can go get a 944. That's just a better car. This is a better car. It's a rear-wheel drive. It's a Porsche. I do always say that if Volkswagen ever made a front-wheel drive, it would be this car. I mean, the VR6. I mean, and you could say that.
Porsche,
if Porsche ever made a front-wheel drive car. Sorry for my slip there. Because they use this engine is what's in the current 6-cylinder Cayenne. It's a derivative of this powertrain. So there is that lineage, and it is part of VAGCOM. And these are super fun to drive, and having that VR6 in there really makes it different from all the other Mark IIs and Mark III Volkswagens of the era, because it was the first one that felt like, oh, wow, this is interesting. Torque, what's that? Because everything else was a 1.8 or 1.6, or a 16-valve 1.8 or whatever. So they were always like, you really had to wind the heck out of a front-wheel drive Volkswagen to get it to do anything. But this was like, what do we, this is power? I don't know. It was mind-boggling for anyone who came up on Volkswagens of that era.
It caught Volkswagen out because they didn't even put a limited slip differential that would have helped with all that torque steer. And that's why the Acura Integra Type R succeeded, because it had similar power, not nearly the same torque, but they put a limited slip diff on that front. And it's largely considered the greatest front-wheel drive, the greatest handling front-wheel drive car of all time. Back to this Corrado, though, it's crazy to me to think that a really nice Carmen Ghia would bring more money than this pretty nice Corrado VR6. That's
way
just
more.
Weird. That's really weird. A Ghia, just a Ghia, not even like a 50s or a split window Beetle or something. Just a Ghia, like that's crazy.
I think a Mark II GTI, like one of those, because they made 2 different versions. They made the 8 valve and the 16 valve with the big headlights and everything on this late era. One of those would go for way more than Corrado, because that still has that 80s boxiness. These are decidedly 90s.
I think they're more desirable. As weird as it sounds, the Corrado is niche for Volkswagen, and Volkswagen's niche for enthusiasts. So.
Yeah.
Anyways,
they were cannibalizing themselves with this car. I mean, they sold the Volkswagen GTI and the Corrado at the same time. It's like, what are you guys doing? They learned the lesson there. All right.
Last car, JP, was this 1984 Alfa Romeo GT-V6 with a 3-liter motor from the Milano Verde, taking it from 150 to about 180 horsepower. There were some other mods to this car. Nice little driver quality. Never going to be a collector. The condition and the engine swap, we'll see to that. I still thought somebody might pay for the work that was done here, so I said 24. You astutely parked your bid right underneath mine at 22, and our car only brought $18,750, but did sell at that price. So JP, on Thursday, I had a good day. 3 wins to your 2, but overall, it was your week. You had 6 wins to my 4. Again, we only did the 2 days. There were no draws and no Yahtzees. I mean, technically, you had a draw with Lane Skelton on the Z8 on Monday, but anyway, for between you and I, no draws, no Yahtzees. So anyway, short week, but there you go. And we've got great cars lined up this week. If you get some guest hosts, or if I can jump on from the islands, there are a lot of really cool cars this week. Maybe one of our most eclectic weeks ever.
Well, we're going to start out with some really cool ones. Particularly, one of my favorite cars of all time is the Porsche Speedster. I've said it many times before. Before we get to that Speedster, make sure you hit the subscribe, like, notification button, all the little buttons on the YouTube machine, so you know when there's fresh nerds, because you don't want stale old nerds. You want the freshest, newest bid nerds available. This is a what do we call this? This is a Speedster 911, but it's not your normal Speedster 911. What is going on here? This is kind of weird.
JP, really quick, because I know your dad lived in Arizona. Where is Sholo, Arizona, for the lay person that doesn't know Arizona?
My father was in northern Arizona, so I don't know any other part of Arizona very well. Sorry. Okay. I mean, Scottsdale, Phoenix, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Offered to us out of Sholo, Arizona, which I've never heard of, is this 1989 Porsche Speedster with 13,000 miles on it. They say true mileage unknown because our car has had a motor swap. Somebody took out the normally aspirated 3.2 and put in the turbocharged 3.3 with an aftermarket intercooler. The 930 motor had been rebuilt with 993 cams. It has an aftermarket, I'm not sure quite how to say it, Quaife limited slip differential. Our car even sports dual exhaust. It still has the G50 gearbox, but the suspension has been updated to Bilsteins, and the car was repainted in Ferrari Giallo yellow, which is fly yellow. And then, of course, they added the T-tray spoiler because that's one of the only wings that'll fit over the intercooler. So what you've got here essentially is a 930 turbo cab from 89 with a G50, but the Speedster windshield treatment and lack of front spoiler, almost like an M70 that we've come to learn on our M491 cars. So this is a really unique color because now it's got paint to sample, now it's got turbo power, now it's got Speedster windshield. I mean, this is really somebody taking the best of all the things from the era, almost just from that particular model year, JP, and making a resto mod to the highest performance order with really cool looks. I actually don't mind the yellow paint on this car. I think it looks pretty neat. That being said, it's hard to value this car. If it were just a, say, true mileage unknown 89 paint to sample Speedster, it would still be over $150,000 car. But our car, with an hour and a half to go, is sitting at just $119,000. So the mystery comes, where will the Porsche audience value this sort of bastardized or Frankenstein car? It's arguably one of the best driving examples that could possibly be out there, but not necessarily the best valuation because it's lack of originality. So where do you think the community will receive this car, JP?
That's a really good question. I actually looked at a car very similar to this here in Vegas.
The red one?
Yeah, the red one, and this one really kind of just I'm getting anxiety and I'm getting ticked off looking at this because I really wanted that dang car. This is one of those situations where did you read the ad? How closely did you read the ad? I assume because it's on BAT that if it had a branded title, it would be very clear. On PCAR Market or some of the other sites, they kind of bury some of that stuff, or could.
There are no accidents on the Carfax. This car is allegedly offered with a clear title, and they even have the original window sticker.
Yeah.
So the documents and the records seem to be there, and the motor itself has Cosmoline on the bottom. I mean, this is a pretty clean example, with the exception of the repaint kind of. Chops it up
we know it's repainted. We know they got into it because, there's no sticker under the hood, which, again, is one of those things that scares me. And what happened to me when I looked at that one here in town was that, I showed up and the guy said it was a clean title, no accidents, and we got there, and the strut tower braces, when we moved the car, he had a strut tower brace. When we removed this carpet, you could see that there's huge weld points. And he's like, oh, well, it was stolen and somebody wrecked it. And I was like, oh, you son of a,
man.
So I was so angry. I was so angry that I talked I should have just used that information against him and bought the car that I've always wanted, but I was just so mad at the guy, and still am. Yes, I'm bitter. This car, what color was it originally? It's still yellow.
Let me read the window sticker. You keep talking. I'll read the window sticker. I'll find
Was
out.
this a car that they completely took apart? And if so, why? That seems really intensive to me, given that these cars really weren't that expensive for a while, like everything else. It's got the yellow valve covers on the engine. That always kind of freaks me out. The yellow blades on the fan and everything. Yeah. So I don't know. This car is probably amazing. I don't think it's going to bring the strongest money, even though, like you said, it's got all these fantastic things. I honestly want a naturally aspirated car. I don't want a turbo in this car. It's fast enough the way it is out of the box. Give it an exhaust so it sounds better. You've got hardly any roof. You've got no roll bar. This is definitely not a car you want to crash. Not like you want to crash any of them, but of all the 911s out there, this is the one you want to crash. You least want to crash because it's being upside down in this car is not good.
Couple of quick points, JP. This car was originally Guards red and sold in California, so they inexplicably repainted it in yellow. But interesting to note, working for Godden, I got to drive a Speedster around the block once or twice before. And then I remember kind of getting into the early 50s Speedsters. Mm-hmm. And I learned that the first 200 Speedsters that came off the assembly line for the North American market were originally convertibles, and then they modified those cars and took components out of them to lighten them and to put the chopped windshield on them, but mainly to take weight out of the car to create what essentially would be a club racer. In other words, a car that would show up at the dealership or to your importer, and he would offer you a car that was a stripped down version that you could take and race in sports car racing in the United States. And that was the mission behind it. And then when you go out, you read all that, you sort of absorb that and take it to heart. And then you go out and you drive this car and realize that these cars are like 250 pounds lighter than their convertible or coupe compatriots. And you realize that it's the best gearbox. It's the hottest version of the motor to date, and then it's a lightened version in every sense. The car handles better, it accelerates better, it even brakes better. These are really great racing cars. They're just not safe because they don't have a roll hoop. I agree with you. It doesn't need a turbo. And while this thing is cool and it's cute and it's whatever, I'd have mine in a regular shade all day long.
Yeah, and I really think that T-tray on the back just ruins the Speedster lines. It looks so good with the humps and then going right down to a tail-free deck lid. But, this car is going to be a great time. I don't think it's going to bring the strongest money, but, over $100,000 already for a car that's just completely what the heck is going on here. It's going to bring big money. So where do we think this is going to land?
Oh boy, JP, that's a really good guess. So it's got 10 bids and it's at $119,000. So last night in my notes, I put 145, and I when I look at it and I take everything to heart, I don't think it's really worth that much, but it's on BAT. It's a holiday. People are drinking. It's bright yellow. some fool is going to love it more than I do, and I'm going to leave my bid at 145 and just take my chances against you on that number.
Interesting that you think the holiday is going to help it. And we don't really know one way or the other if a holiday is going to be strong or if that's going to be like fewer
True.
people. I mean, everyone's out at a barbecue, aren't they? I don't know. If I had the option to
You
sell
gotta
my
learn,
car
right?
today or versus tomorrow on BAT, I would certainly pick tomorrow because everyone's going to be back in the office and everyone's going to be cruising their screens and they're going to be watching Bid Nerds going, hey, which car should I buy? Don't take our advice.
The three guys that are watching this that haven't bid yet, that plan on bidding, are drinking alcohol as we're doing the show. I guarantee it.
I'm going to say 140. I just don't think it's going to bring. I mean, it is such a fantastic car, and it's got to be fun with that turbo. But yeah, I mean, for not much more, you could get one that's not a turbo, which is odd that you would say that would be the more expensive car, but it would be a legit one. Yeah. So there it is. All right, guys.
How about taking that motor out and dropping a 964 block in there? That'd be the way to go.
Yeah, right. Now we're talking. All right. Okay, so, I mean, that is probably one of the lightest and most fun 911s you could ever buy. What about this one? What about this 82 SC? A lot of SC's been coming up lately.
This one is
everything
special.
is on the rise. What's going on with this particular car?
JP, we had Lane on the show, and we were covering a car that was offered out of Monterey, California by a seller called More Imports. And Lane said, I know those guys. Those are my buddies. So Lane Skelton from DWA in Radwood, his buddies in Monterey have identified a one-owner 1982 Porsche 911 SC Coupe in light blue metallic with a beige leather upholstery. Our car has 67,000 original documented miles. So this is original miles, original drivetrain, and original paint. Now, one of the panels showed a variation from one end of the panel to the other, but the variation was from like 4 to 6. Somebody in the comments is trying to blow the seller up and saying, the owner should know if this is a real one-owner car. He would know if it's been repainted. And More Imports goes to return the note to that commenter saying that to the best of the consignor's knowledge, this car has never had any paint work done. It's entirely possible that this car was repainted at the factory or at the port, or that there might just be an unusual variance in it. Again, it doesn't go from like 6 to 12 mils. It goes from like 4 to 6. So I feel pretty confident that all this stuff is original and true, and that this is a no-nonsense original car, and that this is a collector-grade example. If you look through the notes or the photos, JP, it has a Porsche certificate of authenticity that was issued in 1996 that looks like an award. It doesn't look like the contemporary COAs that we're used to, which is really neat. And then all the Cosmoline is still, actually, they did cryogenically clean the bottom of the motor now that I'm looking at it. Looks like there's Cosmoline on the suspension, but not on the motor. They must have taken the motor out at some point in its history. Anyway, it's all there. SCs have been moving in the right direction, but this car is sure to bring a haul. With 2.5 hours to go, John, this thing is already sitting at 66,000 miles. There's no way this car is going to break 100 grand, but do you think it'll reach 80? Where are you at on this car? Does the colorway hurt it,
These idiots on BAT sometimes, the great thing about BAT and all these sites is the comments and the community kind of making sure that everyone's being checked and people don't get away with BS. But then there's the people, the peanut gallery that comes in. I mean, just shut the hell up, man. Oh, it's been repainted because of 4mm versus 6. Just shut up. You're not someone. If you're not, look. That guy is not buying this car. This guy doesn't have the money. This guy can't afford it. This guy is just like, he's in his mom's basement. You can't afford a 911, dude. Shut up. Anyways, is this? I hate the exterior color doesn't bother me so much. This interior color is, for me personally, just DOA. I can't handle it. I kind of the brown, the dark brown dash with the light beige seats, and they're just like they just look terrible. Even though they're not worn out, they're just like baggy and stretched, and they just look tired in a way that it's just I don't want to spend time in this car. It's probably going to bring big money because it's a one owner and it's got low miles, but somebody else can have it.
Documentation.
I just do not want this car at all. Where do you think it's going to land?
JP, I couldn't agree with you more. The guy who said vehemently, oh, after looking at the way that the paint meter tapers off down the rear quarter panel, whatever he was talking about, he's saying vehemently that this car's been repainted, yet he's not standing or touching the car. He's not there. And that's just like, it really is way out of bounds. It's like, Thumper's mother said, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. So, shut the F up. I think JP being in California with the good documentation, the way Moore's standing up for the car and representing it, I think they're going to do well by this as a collector grade car. I agree with you. It's not for me. I'd rather have a 3.2 anyways. But I think this car stands a chance. I'm going to go $85,000, and the consignor and the selling dealer are going to be very happy.
Yeah, I'm going to park underneath you and just go 82. It's not too much below you, but
82 for an 82? Oh,
yeah, I don't think, honestly, I don't think it's going to break 80, but I'm just going to play it a little
Really?
bit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so nice, but I think as crazy as numbers are, I think I think today's going to hurt. I think Memorial Day is not a good day. I think there's not going to be enough.
You might be right. We could wake up tomorrow and see some sad results, despite our good bids. Look at that photo right there, JP. That color, that light blue metallic. Imagine if that's an all black interior. That's a good looking car.
Yeah, there you go too.
Car.
A different, even a black dash with this beige interior would be okay. It's just that brown. Yeah. And you know what? There's something like that. The shade of that brown dashboard. I don't know if I've ever seen one like that before. That could work on like a white car, or like not a champagne, but what was Ortiz color? The Shallon, or not Shallon? God, what color white was that? I should know. I made the film about his car. The stripper color.
Oh yeah. Shit, not Lennon. Wait, hold on.
Oh,
it's on
we're
the
so
tip of my tongue now.
I know. Chiffon. Chiffon white. The correct answer is chiffon white. Chiffon white with a dashboard that color, that would be okay. That works. But with this blue, it's not doing it. Anyways, all right. All right. What other Memorial Day bargains are on the auction block? What else is
how about a white 996 turbo, JP? Let's jump over to Bring a Trailer. Oh, wait. We're only on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah,
Drink a Trailer. Yeah, today it's Drink a Trailer. Okay, 2001 Porsche 911 Turbo Coupe with a 6-speed manual. This is an 18,000-mile car, and I say that for two reasons. One, cool, it's low miles, but two, why in the heck did this guy change out his wheels to the multi-piece 18-inch disasters, and why did he change the turbochargers? This car has aftermarket twin Garrett GT28 turbochargers that are run by a Revo Stage 2 software upgrade. Cool, guy. So you made a track car out of it. Now that you want to sell it, put it back to stock and sell the parts off separately. I think that's going to, in my heart, that should hurt the value. And yet here we are with 2.5 hours to go, and this guy's already sitting on $62,501 of cash, meaning that the BAT community doesn't really care that he modified the turbos on his car. That's just weird to me. I would think this car should bring a lot more if it were bone stock, and we're already at almost, close to top dollar for a car, from that era. Anyway, out of Costa Mesa, California, 996 they call it Biarritz white paint. The leather interior, despite these bad photos, is actually Metropole blue. It's not black with bad photos. That's actually a dark blue leather interior. The wood is hideous. And so, you glance at this car from across the parking lot, JP, and you're like, oh my God, that's awesome. And then you walk up and look at it closely and you're like, nah, forget it. I'm over this car already. Take it away.
This car's freaking sick in a lot of ways. Hold on, guys. We're having a little bit of a technical problem here. Sorry. Stand by.
So as I'm looking at photos underneath the car, JP, the motor is still stock. Despite changing the turbochargers, the motor's still stock. And this Metzger engine is still covered in the factory Cosmoline, which is kind of a nod to the low miles. But, this guy inexplicably tried to go faster than I think he needed to by changing the turbos. I'm guessing he got an extra 150 horsepower to this thing. This could be like
I don't know why you're knocking that. That would be so much fun in this car. I mean, the wheels are easy to change. They are period correct. I mean, that was they look like HREs. I don't know what they are. They have Porsche center caps, so it's hard to tell what they are specifically. They need spacers desperately, and I don't think they would look that bad. But regardless, you can easily change that out. That's a different air intake filter. Looks like Evolution. Oh yeah, okay. So this has a bunch. This has more than just new turbos, dude. If that's Yeah, I think there's details to be looked at on this car as to what mods
Right.
have been done to this thing. This thing is probably an absolute monster. I have zero problem with the mods other than the wheels. Did you say it has Bilsteins on it? PSS 9s or something?
I did not. I don't see that. No, I'm not saying that.
You know, the great thing about the 996 Turbo is you can build the living crap out of it. You can get 600 horsepower out of one of these. No problem, and it's still going to be reliable with all that extra power. These engines are built for the power, and you've got 997 turbo power really quick, and for arguably less, way more than a 997. But we're talking late model ones. I mean, you can be the fastest guy on the road with one of these, and spend half the money as somebody in a Lambo or something that has way more power.
A a 997.2 Turbo S would give this car would give it a run for its money. I'm not saying it would show it taillights, but it'd be with these aftermarket turbos and the tune, B&M short shift. But remember that .2 Turbo S only came with an automatic. And the automatic versus a manual, because it's a slush box automatic. It's not a PK.
It's a Tiptronic versus,
it'd be an interesting little duel, to go run across the desert and chase each other. You'd be like crazy speed. You'd be racing each other playing cat and mouse at 140 miles an hour on the freeway. I mean, that's crazy.
The problem with
this is a one-owner car.
This is one owner car. Okay, yeah, low miles and everything like that. I kind of like these wheels. If they were on spacers, they're totally period correct. That was the thing. If they, the problem with 3-piece wheels on modern cars is because you could fit a 19 on these really easily, and I'm guessing that's what those are. Yeah. But the wheel lip winds up making the total diameter of the wheel look smaller because your eye just looks at the diameter of the star, not the whole silver part. So it kind of makes it look like you got a smaller wheel. So you almost have to go 20s, but 20s on this car is not where you want to go. It's going to totally screw up the handling and everything like that. So, I think a monoblock wheel, the factory stock monoblock wheel, is one of the best looking Porsche wheels of all time. Those thrust wheels or whatever they were called.
Give me the 996 GT3 wheel on this car, and I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, which is the same looking wheel as all of them. They didn't have a different wheel on the GT. The 996 or the GT3 or GT2?
The GT3 wheel. So the
GT3 wheel.
Car,
yeah.
Which is multi-spoke. I think that wheel on this car would be tits.
Did they ever make them wide? I don't know if they made them wide enough.
Because the turbos, I would think they were.
Yeah, you'd make them work. Whatever. I like the regular turbo wheels. Anyways, we could debate about wheels all day long. I'll be right.
Well,
let's do it. You're on vacation. You've got time.
I got nothing to do today.
Is this wheel? Is this going to hurt the value or is it going to help it? What do we think, guys? Where's this car going to land?
My knee-jerk reaction is that it was going to hurt the value, and then you look with 2.5 hours to go, car's sitting at $62,500, which is getting up near all the money. It's on 10 bids, but it's Monday and it's a holiday, as you have astutely pointed out. So I'm going to go 70 grand and say that the mods hurt it, because if it wasn't modded, it would have brought 80 or maybe 85. But there'll be no way to quantify my answer, because you could also say that, well, the reason why it only brought 70 was because it was a holiday and everybody was out in the back of the house and not in their office. But $70,000 to you, JP. Where you at?
I think I'm going to go way over. I'm going to go 80. I think this thing is modded the way it should be as far as the performance stuff. Wheels are easy to swap. That hideous brown wood stuff on the dash and interior is changeable. You can swap out those parts for not a lot of money. I think the seller should have done that before he took pictures of it, because that wood is just so bad. Yeah, I'm going to say 80,000. This car is low miles with all the power mods. This thing's ready to go for a long time. You just get in this thing, put some spacers on those wheels, and call it good. Be a monster. But I don't think it goes over 80, because you're in 997 turbo territory, and some people would say they'd prefer to have the 996, but most people are going to lean on the 997 turbo for this if it's the same money.
That's a good take that we've made before on the show. So
Yeah.
I think that quantifies out that breaks even. All right, JP, I picked a car just for you. This is a car that I've really been feeling since you've kind of lusted all over one that we had a couple months ago. What we're talking about is a 2007 BMW Z4 M Coupe. Check this one out, John. It's only got 24,000 miles. It's offered out of Monterey, California. It's not by More Imports, though. It's from somebody else. But I love this silver gray metallic paint and the full black interior with the aluminum inlays. I mean, if you had to have one, and I'd be happy to have one, this is the one to get. What makes this car so special, JP, remember, it's got the S54. So it's a 3.2 liter inline six, but with individual throttle bodies on each of the cylinders. So ITBs is what makes this car sing. You're talking 330 horsepower and a whopping, let me read it to you, 262 pound-foot of torque. That is a recipe for fun. You have often compared this car from this era to, like, early 996s, as kind of a good comp, and that this car is really every bit as fun and arguably a bit more reliable, like less to deal with. Cool features with the crisp angled design and the four exhaust pipes coming out of the back. This is a real M car. This is a real driver's car, and this is a real looker. I like this car. What do you think?
Man, if you like the 996 GT3, but don't want to pay $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for one, but want to have as much fun, honestly, I think this is the car. This is the turn car, right? Yeah. I mean, this is so much better than a regular 996 of the same. You get a .2 996 of the same era, which is a fantastic car. But you are talking about a 996. Call it a 2003 996. I mean, you're looking, even for a regular one with a manual with decent, for 80,000 miles, you're going to be spending $40,000 now. And you're going to be totally terrified of that stupid IMS and cylinder scoring and all kinds of things are going to be in the back of your head all the time when you drive that car. This car, you can get in it and abuse it. This is Honda reliable. BMWs of this era with this particular powertrain were so good. I mean, you can just abuse and abuse and abuse. Great shot, guy. You caught an airplane flying over. How cool is that? Looks like a C-130 or something. This is, it is a sports car in every sense of the word. There's no screwing around. It really does. I mean, it's not as fast as a GT3. It's not as good as a GT3. But for a third of the price, you're going to have probably as much fun as you would in the GT3. Where do we think this one's going to land?
This is a really neat car, JP. So with 3 hours to go out of California, with just 24,000 original miles, our 2007 BMW Z4 M Coupe is sitting at $39,000. Wow. So I was vacillating last night between like 45 and 48, 45 and 48. Last night the car was also at 38,000. Anyway, I said $48,000. I'm going to sort of take my own over on the two numbers I was trying to consider, just because this one's so clean, it's so low miles. If it doesn't get there, it's not because of the car or the location. I think it's because of the holiday, and that's a bummer if this guy doesn't get all the money, because I think he certainly deserves it. It's a really nice looking car.
Where is this car again?
Monterey.
Oh, it is in Monterey. Yeah, boy, my numbers, half the price of a third of the price of a GT3. Man, at $40,000, we're darn near. Well, it's a lot more than that. So $39,000 is all the money for one of these, or at least already. It was 3 months ago. This was a car that you would struggle to get in the high 30s not very long ago. So the fact that this thing's probably going to break 40, it means that, okay, this car is arriving. People are finally noticed. This car is going to, I mean, for a long time, you could get these for less money than the Z3 clown shoe coupe. I mean, it's like, what the hell? And this is so much better car. What was your number? What'd you bid?
48.
48. Wow, gosh, I'm gonna go under and say 45. I don't think it gets. It can't get to 50. It just can't. And if it does, well, all right. And it'll be interesting to see what this does to roadster values, because those man, those are under $20,000 all day long until maybe this moment. I mean, again, this does have low miles and everything like that, but so what? I mean, you could get one of these with 80,000 miles and drive it till it has 190 and probably not have any major problems. These are really, really, really reliable sports cars. I think still to this day, one of the best values of sports car ever.
Yeah.
All right.
Even at 45 grand, that's a lot of
Even
car.
at 45 grand, yeah. I mean, what else do you get for $45,000 that you can beat on for the next 10 years? Just, I mean, this could be your only car for the next decade, and you can have just as much fun as people paying 3 times the money. I don't know. Maybe I guess I'm buying it. I don't have the money for it. That's too much. I just can't bring myself to spending that much on a Z4M, even though they're the greatest car ever. All right, this last car, holy freehold.
Last car. JP, our last car is no reserve. Quick question.
Yeah.
Honest answer.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a Kelmark GT before today?
I have, as a matter of fact.
I figured you would.
And not that long ago, too. Well, tell us about this car, and I'll kind of relay my...
I'm sure I recognize the shape, but because I've never studied, the car before, I don't know that I'm familiar with the brand Kelmark or the model, the GT. But when you glance at this, and when I tell you about this car's internals, it kind of looks like a Porsche 904 GTS and a C3 Corvette Stingray had illicit sex and had a baby, and this is that car.
Three-way with a Dino. Come on. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Oh, don't bring a Dino into that.
That's what it's modeled after. That's what it wanted to be, was a Dino, even though it's completely failed miserably.
So this is a 1978 Kelmark GT. So it's a kit car that they sell you, and then you build it on a Volkswagen. This particular car is registered as a 1970 Volkswagen. So I'm guessing that this kit was built over a 1970 Volkswagen, either Beetle or Ghia or whatever, and then was constructed. The original color was blue, and it had that drivetrain. The owner of this car bought it in 2003 and then set about making something that I thought would be of interest to you, because he swapped out the drivetrain and put in a 2.2 liter flat six from a total 1970 Porsche 911T. He also included the 915 gearbox and got this car running on 2 banks of Zenith 40T carburetors. So, by all accounts, this car is Porsche running gear. And those turbine wheels, those 15-inch turbine wheels, are staggered width and are actually pretty wide. This car is not really running well at the moment. There's whine from the gearbox, and I think he said there's some other problem. The brakes are weak. So clearly there's some systems that need to be that need attention. But when you look at this car and you look at the motor and drivetrain that's in there, JP, all I can picture is Tony Mazzagatti's car. And what I want to do is strip the paint on this thing and make it silver and put a couple of red Pegasus and some meatballs on it, and then try to rework the hubs to fit a set of Fuchs wheels, and put some early 15-inch Fuchs wheels on it, like some deep sixes. And then it's also got, you might have noticed, JP, it's got the Porsche steering wheel from the 1970 T that crashed. Yeah. I would love to then swap that out and put a Prototipo on there. And then I don't like the dash, the little stencil dash. I would do something a little different than that. But this is like a really neat car. I just think there's a lot of potential here. I imagine this thing weighs well under 1,800 pounds. This to me looks like it probably weighs 1,500 or 1,600 pounds. And then with driver and fluids and stuff, it's probably up to 1,800 pounds. This is just, I bet it's a blast. Imagine if you could work out some of the kinks and then really make this thing look cool. You'd fool all your friends, and yet it goes by and it sounds like a Porsche. So anyway, neat little kit car. I don't know where this thing is, where it's worth. They were never intended to have the Porsche drivetrain. I'm not sure that it's strong enough to hold, the 150, 160 horsepower that this car likely makes. But it still looks like it'd be a lot of fun. I don't know why. This one caught my attention, and I thought of you. This is a no reserve, JP. It's offered out of Blue Mounds, Wisconsin. And like I said, it's registered as a 1970 Volkswagen, which means if you brought this to California, it's smog exempt. So you can do whatever you want to this thing and make it go. 3 hours to go. It's sitting at $13,000. It's really interesting to hear this guy shift this car and stuff. It's really neat, man.
This video looks like it's as old as the car. I do know what one of these. I was looking for a car to run in the Targa Baja like 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember basically going, all right, because the Targa Baja and a lot of these Targas restrict the cars. You know, they have to be 76 or older unless they're a continuation. That's why they're always full of 911s, because an 89 911 is a continuation of a car that looked the same in 76. So you know, that's why 90% are all G bodies out there. So I was like going, all right, what can I take down to Mexico? What can I buy that's cheap? Because my 993 was not allowed at the time, and I didn't have an SC at the time or anything old enough to run in the Targa. So I was like just cruising Craigslist, and I came across one of these, and unfortunately most of them have a Volkswagen engine, and most of them have like a 1600 or whatever, and of course they're just gutless. But I thought, gosh, at the time the car was like $7,000 or $8,000, and it was actually in nice condition. It was all good. It was just ridiculously slow. So I figured, I could get this ridiculous thing, hang back with the Alphas in the back, you know, the old beat up 50s cars or whatever, and just have a good time and be kind of ironic on the Targa Baja. And if the car blew up, I could just leave it in Mexico, and who cares?
Leave it there,
you know, let it burn down on the side of the road, and I don't know what happened to it. I mean, I can't imagine a real engine in one, because when I drove the one with the 1600 Volkswagen engine, it just felt like it was going to snap in half going around the corners. I was just like, this is quite terrifying. Being inside of, you know, Tony's 904 replica, his is a Beck replica with a complete tube frame. That is one of the most terrifying machines to be inside of as well. But it just because feels like a human being shouldn't be in there. It feels like you're actually riding inside the engine. If you could shrink yourself down and find space in between the valves when they're opening and closing, that's what it feels like you're riding in that damn thing. But it doesn't feel like it's going to break or explode. It just feels like you shouldn't be there. This car, I don't want to be inside this car. That is just scary. It's got to be fun. It's pretty neat. If it's not a lot of money, I think you could have a good time with it. But I mean, at 13 and a half, where do we think it's going to land with about 3 hours to go?
Where's the comp on a car like this? It doesn't exist. Look, the drivetrain's worth money. I would think the drivetrain is worth 20 grand, and then they throw in the car, or you can wheel it instead of put it on a pallet. They wheel it to you on the wheels of the Kelmark GT. But I don't know. It's a holiday. It's such an unusual car. I think it's going to turn most people off. So I'm just going to say $17,000, JP.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. I'm going to say I'll park it right under you and go 16. I think it fails to sell. I think this guy probably thinks it's worth 20 or something.
No, it's no reserve.
It's no reserve, really?
It's going. It's
wow.
Go.
Okay, maybe we buy this thing for 15 grand or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I'm with you though. The engine is worth 20 grand. So why wouldn't you buy this thing, flog it until it breaks in half, and then take the engine out and put it in something else? Boy, now I want to. Where's this car?
Blue Mounds, Wisconsin.
Yeah, this thing is just screaming for a livery. You know, big, huge meatballs and numbers and all that stuff. I don't know if I would go. I don't think I would try to make it look like a 904. From what I remember, they were going for a Dino, even though it's just like not happening. It's the bug eyes and stuff like that, where that's what they were trying to make happen. So I think if you're going to do a livery, I think it would be old Italian looking livery or something like that, or not. Definitely don't put the one I looked at had Ferrari badges on it and everything. It was so stupid.
Imagine taking the white stripes off, leave it all red, and then instead of putting Ferrari badges or shields on the side, you do the two Jamiroquais on the side,
Yeah, right. A white meatball that's like overlaps over the window, like it's it's so like an oversized meatball on the door. It's huge. Right. I don't like the white stripes. Yeah, I would definitely put another meatball on the hood, like a Dutch meatball on the hood that overlaps onto the one fender and over the top of it with a big, huge black number. That would look pretty dope. But I don't know, fun stuff. Cheap way to have a good time. All right, guys. Well, that's what we do. We nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day. Not necessarily the best cars, because that Kelmark is. There's better cars on the auction sites today, but certainly an interesting thing to talk about. Happy bidding out there, everyone. Have a great Memorial Day. Drink safe. Thank you to all of those who have served and all of those who we are memorializing today. This is a great day for America to get out there and enjoy yourselves with your family and the people that are still with us, but don't forget the ones who are not. So again, Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. We will see you tomorrow. We are doing a show, hell or high water, even if Michael Deeb has to do it from a snorkel boat somewhere out in the bay. We will figure out something. But there it is. We'll nerd out with you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much, Deeb. Anything else you want to say? I guess he does not.
Be safe today. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. Have fun with those pina coladas.
Get those words!